Hello and welcome to your tutorial on unique learning systems. Welcome. We are going to be spending this tutorial going through specifically the curriculum component of unique learning systems. So what you do is you go to news2u.com and you sign in, and this is what the homepage looks like. You're going to see lots of fun stuff, little icons that go into ULS, Unique Learning Systems, Inspire, News2U. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to Unique Learning Systems. We're going to click that little icon, and that's going to bring us into the teacher dashboard. There are multiple ways that you can get to this page. One is the way I just showed you. Another way is to go to the menu hamburger up here in the top left corner and expand Unique Learning Systems, and then click on where you need to go. And here you're going to see a lot of different stuff. We're going to go over all of this stuff. So right now you're in the teacher dashboard. The teacher dashboard is where your data lives, where your dates live, where you can assign homework, you can assign assignments. It's great. This is lots and lots of information in here. You could do a whole tutorial on this. What I recommend for this is just click around and get well acquainted with this. This is not what this video is on, but you can find a separate video that goes into detail about the whole teacher dashboard because there's a lot to unpack in here. So we are going to start looking at the different curriculum things that are offered in here. On Unique Learning System, you're going to see this drop down, and there's going to be News2U GPS. That's where you're going to see your students, their student profiles. You're going to have the place where you put in the checkpoints and the benchmarks. You can find separate videos on that. I will link those in the comments below, or not the comments, in the description below, so that you can watch the video on benchmarks and the video on checkpoints. Those are videos in and of themselves. It took like 20 minutes to go through all the ins and outs of that. So that's where this is, the GPS and student profiles. There's also a lot of other things in here. I mean, this is a very, like everything's in here. The Unique Learning Systems and the whole suite has so many different components that, you can make a tutorial video on like each tab in here. Anyway, so there's that, the GPS, that's where your data lives. And then what we're going to really focus on is the News2U library, the unit lessons, core materials, courses. And you can see a separate video. We're going to touch on the teacher reference materials in the year topics, but we're really going to be focusing on these four things right here. So we're going to go to News2U library. All right, and then here is where you can search for stories. You can change your different levels. You can change the different categories. This is awesome. I use this so frequently when I am creating adapted lessons and putting them into that story-based format. And this is great for finding content. So what you're going to do is, let's just think of something random. Maybe you are doing a lesson about jobs. You type in jobs up here, and then it's going to give you all the books that have to do with jobs. Now, here's the thing about this library. You kind of have to be, in iRobot, the movie, when they're like, oh, you're not asking the right question. Okay, well, this is finicky in that way too. You have to put in the right words because it has the keywords, but sometimes you have to get creative on how you look for them. Like if you type in math, there's not anything, right? It says we don't have any math books. They do though. If you type in numbers, all of a sudden there's numbers, right? If you type in shapes, oh, there's some shapes. If you type in greater than, I bet that has something to, oh no, not greater than. Okay, less. If you put in money. So like we know that those are all math related topics, but just typing in math didn't bring up those books, right? So if you're searching and you want only certain levels, you can select the level that you want. If you don't want to see into those A's, double A's, B's, and you only want to see C's, D's, and E's, for example, if you click those, it's only going to show you those books. I always click all levels, and then I don't mind sifting through and looking like, oh, that's a double A, I don't need that, but it's up to you. So categories, this can help you look based on category, right? But see, the tricky thing about this is that, remember I just typed in math? It doesn't have a math category. You really do have to think about specifically, like, is there one on time for pizza, time traveling, like you have to put in what you want and see if there's a book for it. There isn't a book for everything. You just have to really know what you're looking for. Like they have this whole series about alphabets. They have the whole color series in here, so you really have to know what you're looking for. So you can't just come in here and click on math. It's not one of the choices. You can, however, come in here and click on science, social studies. Joey is one of their recurring characters. They have a lot of health books. They have great holiday books. They have great, I love their songbook series. Their decodables are great. Let's pull up a decodable. They are unleveled because they are decodable. But so let's do this. When you find the story that you want, you have two options. You can either download it as a PDF or you can go into the interactive format. So let's do this. Let's go to Life Lessons and just pick a hat for Jerry, because that's a book that I've read 1 million times. So if you click on download PDF, it's going to pull the PDF of the story for you. And you can print this, you can snip it and put it into a slides presentation. It's also going to have, I love printing these out. These are some vocabulary that you're going to see during the story. And this is a great opportunity if you have students that are able to point to these words as they come up, or love them. This is a fun thing to print out. So I always like to print that out when I know I'm going to be reading a story, especially if I'm going to be doing it more than once. All right, so that's the PDF option. Let's say you want to do the interactive option. Now, this interactive option is what I do. Sometimes I teach a story from the slides presentation, and that is the images that I've snipped from here. And the reason I do that is because I'll usually put some slides of the story, and then I'll focus on a couple core vocabulary words. I'll focus on some comprehension questions. And I like having that in the slides presentation because then it just kind of naturally goes into it. So if I have a core word that, let's say my core word is she. Let's say I pick she, that's one of the core words. I might have this on one page, and then the next page in my slide might be the core word she, and then we'll focus on she, we'll find she in the story, that kind of thing. And that incorporates the universal core vocabulary into this ULS lesson and integrates them, right? I might also have, let's say there's a comprehension question where it's like, what does Jerry need? Jerry needs to find a hat. So I might have that on a slide. What does Jerry need? She needs a hat, pants, I don't know, shirt. She needs a hat. So I will work in those comprehension questions if I want them to be answering them as we go, right? To check for understanding questions. All right, so the great thing about doing this in this format is that you can use the speak page.
Jerry needs to find a hat.
Love that. You can use the annotation. She. All right, clear the page. So you have all those options here. You can also use the go button if you want to get to certain things faster, like the communication board, or if you know there's something on page 5, or if you're working on the standard for them going back and referencing the text to answer questions, you can use this little table of contents to get to what you need. All right, so that is what it looks like to be in a story on ULS. And that is what it looks like to navigate the library in Unique Learning Systems. So we're done with the library. The library is cool. It's pretty easy to use. There is also a News to You library guide up here, and I encourage you to click on that and read through it. It pretty much says everything that I just told you, but here, I'll pull it up so you can see it. But if this is a way that you learn better, it's going to also talk about the different levels. Because in a previous video, we talked about how you may not know what level your student is in ULS. You might know what level your student is in Reading A to Z. You might know what level your student is in Letterland, but that's different in ULS. So it's important to check these levels so you know like what's going to appear in that level of text based on of ULS's parameters. So I encourage you to read through this. It helps you understand how their text is formatted and how it's adapted. All right. So that is the News to You library and unique learning systems. It is awesome. Definitely use that. All right, next we're going to go to unit lessons. This is fantastic. Get ready for your life to change if you have not started using this. So Unique Learning Systems has monthly lessons, and they are broken up by unit. And at any given time, you can access this gamut of units. You can't access units for infinity amount of time. Like if it is April, you're not going to be able to, and you're on unit 23, you're not going to be able to access the unit from August or September. They don't keep them in there forever. It is, but it's not limited. You know, there, you really can. This is a lot. Like there's a lot of units in here, right? So currently, timeline wise, if you're following the timeline, we're actually on unit 4 right now in the summer. It is year round. They do these lessons year round. So what you're going to notice, and this is really important, and you could really do an entire video about all the ins and outs of the unique learning system component of the unit lessons, right? So every unit is going to have everything you need for math and literacy. So you should be able to come into a unit and it's going to be broken down, and they should have science and social studies. So they're going to have one science and social studies concept. The thing about it is you're not going to have all your science standards on here, but you will be surprised at how many math and ELA standards you have on each lesson and how all encompassing each of these are. I'm about to show you that. So let's say you are doing unit 4. It is July and you are doing summer school and you're doing unit 4. Every lesson is going to have all of these components. You're going to have a unit overview. You're going to have your level books, your comprehension, your easy readers, your reading comprehension. You're going to have your nonfiction standards. You're going to have your fiction or, fiction standards. You're going to have frequency words. So you're going to have like your sight words. You're going to have letters and sounds like phonemic awareness. You're going to have a vocabulary component. You're going to have a sentence building semantics component. You're going to have, see how it breaks it up into literary experience fiction. You're going to have many stories in this lesson that hit all of the standards, right? You might be missing one or two, but you'd be hard pressed because I have gone through each of these lessons and taken the entire list of the Extend 1 standards, and usually it's only missing one or two, and they're kind of repetitive standards, honestly. And it's usually only in math. They do not miss a English language arts standard when they're creating these lessons. It's remarkable. It is remarkable that every month you have the ability and you have the resources to hit every Extend 1 standard. Like, how crazy is that? So it's here. All the tools are here. Are you going to do that every month? Probably not. That's crazy, right? You're probably not going to do that every month, but you could if you want to. But what that really means is that if that month you are focusing on addition and subtraction, that is what you're doing that month. You know that every single month you're going to have some content on addition and subtraction. And if you're doing multiplication and division this month, you're going to know that your theme is giving gifts. There is going to be a multiplication and division activity that goes with your theme of giving gifts, or your theme, if you're teaching money, you're going to have something that goes with your theme. So think of the units as the theme. It's thematic for the month. And you're always going to have many activities that cover all of the Extend 1 standards with that team or with that theme. So they have fractions, measuring. It is really remarkable. Like if you haven't looked at this yet, then you probably have been missing out, because it is phenomenal to be able to go through and say like, oh man, Billy really liked the theme by the sea. He really enjoyed that. We're on unit 4, but he really liked the sea. And I need to reteach money concepts to Billy. I know he liked by the sea, And I know that he needs to be retaught the concepts of money because he is not grasping that in this current lesson. When I go to reteach him, I might just go to By the Sea. And for additional activities, I might go down and find money. And they have it there for me. So I know that if he really enjoyed this theme, I can get him to make a connection back to this theme. Oh, remember when we were talking about things you can do by the sea, and we talked about 4th of July, how great was that? Here's an activity about money that I'm going to do to reinforce these skills with you, to reteach these skills with you, and make a connection with you, right? So that's just one example how you can use this wonderfully extensive library. And you know that every unit is going to have something about money. So that is a bunch of different probes that you can use that are related to money where you can reteach that concept if you have to, right? Right. It's very cool in here. Come in here, look around. You are going to love it. You can search by standard. Let me show you a couple of things. So when I look at the standards, I usually pick a focus standard, right? Because I have 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. So I'm going to pick a focus standard for that unit. I know that we're focusing on addition in this unit. And yeah, there's going to be some supplementary standards that I'm looking at, like maybe my focus standard is from 4th grade. I'll pick one from 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, right? And it's on addition. But maybe we're also touching on some other stuff when I'm creating this like great, well-balanced lesson, right? With a perfect combination of review and anticipatory pieces to let them know what's going to be coming next and how it makes connections to what you've already learned and what you're about to learn and what you're learning right now. We're going to make a beautiful lesson, and these are the tools that you need to make that beautiful lesson. All right, so if I go into Number Sense, there are 2 ways I access it. I can access it with the PDF, and I can access it with the Interact. I'm going to open both of those. But first, I'm going to click on this View Activities because this is great. If you click on View Activities, so you're talking about adding. We just said we're working on addition. That is what we need activities for, or that is the lesson that we're doing. If you need activities for that lesson, you click on View Activities, and look at this. It has a whole bunch of them. Everything you need, really. Honestly, let's be real. This is everything you need. You have an activity for each of these, and get ready. There's your standard. So if your focus standard is NC4, NBT4, you have it right there. You know, this is the activity that you need to work on. And so when you go to interact with that activity, and we're going to look at that, here it is. So this is great. Every activity is going to have the lesson plan on the first page for you to look at, just to review maybe some core words that you're going to be focusing on, your math language. It also gives you the differentiated tasks. So in one of our previous videos, we looked at how do we find out what the differentiated level is for the student, and you take a full assessment for them, and it's like a little personality quiz, and it tells you what level they fall in. So differentiated task, this gives you ideas on how to interact with your student to meet them at their differentiated level. So my sample student was level 1. So I know that some things that the student will do is count to a given number through an active participation response. So that can be with a voice output device, eye gaze, a choice board. We know that this skill is going to look differently for a level 2 student. They might be counting and reading 1-digit and 2-digit numbers, whereas a level 3 student is probably going to count and read numbers up to 100. So it tells you what to expect based on your student's level. Same activity. You're about to do the same activity with all 3 levels of these students, but this is telling you what to expect, what your expectations should be of that level student while you're doing this activity. Fabulous, right? All right, so let's look at the activity. And, you know, since we're here, let's come down on this too, because this is an important part. It gives you the background. So this is the topic connection. It tells you what you're going to be learning about and how it connects to Day at the Beach, which is the story from this unit, right? Gives you some vocabulary words, math words. You're using that high-level math language. And then it also, this is really cool. It tells you the unit checkpoints and the benchmark assessments that go along with this activity. So you know from our previous videos, if you haven't seen them, go check them out. There's a benchmark assessment tutorial and a unit checkpoint assessment tutorial, which tells you how to get to these places and how to access this material. But these are the checkpoints and the benchmarks that go along with this activity. All right, so let's take a look at this activity. All right, it tells you the topic, it tells you what units they fit into. So this is all for you, and then you get to the activity. So this activity is 16 pages long, but you're going to see varying levels of interaction on this activity. All right, so here is one page of the activity where there's nothing, and it requests for the student to write or type in this space. So this would be probably your higher, not your level 1 student, maybe not even your level 2 student, possibly your level 2 student, but definitely your level 3 student. So it's going to give them the prompt. Emily sees 2 beach towels. They are going to type 2 in there, and it's going to be like, bing, you got it. Chris sees 3 beach towels, and then you're going to type in 3. Woo! How many are all together? And then you're going to type in 5 because you're a smart cookie and you got this and you know this information. So that is going to be probably like your level 2 or level 3 student. You're also going to find that there's the same activity right here. But this activity is geared more toward that 2 level student. So it has the option for them to trace it. And you find the traceable letter. It's going to give them like multiple options here.
2.
2. All right.
3.
Ooh, we're finding 3. So we're matching the number rather than just like going in blind, right? And then it's going to ask you to pick the right answer. 5.
5.
So see how that's the same activity. It's the same prompt, but it's written for a different level of students. So see up there, it says level 2. This is what they want for the level 2. This is what they expect for the level 3. And we know it's not cut and dry like that. We know it's not, because level 2 to level 3, there is a gray area. And level 1 to level 2, there is a gray area. There isn't a gray level between, or a gray area between 1 and 3. That's 2. But we know that some students from level 1 to level 2, they're in the middle. And there's some concepts that they lean more toward the 2. And there's some concepts where they lean more toward the 1. And same thing with 2 to 3. There's some concepts where they're going to lean more toward the 2 and some where they're going to lean toward the 1. So you might have a level 2 student who is able to type in the numbers, right? But maybe when it comes to literacy and other area or reading literacy like ELA, maybe they really need more of that 2-level support. It's differentiated for that reason, so you can decide what is a good working level for your student, what is a frustration level for your student. And here it's going to have the level 1 activity. It has the numbers already put in there. You can click on them, it'll read them, and you can actually select the matching number.
3.
And it's still going to ask them
5
to solve the problem, right? I want you to look at a couple. Come on.
5.
All right. If you don't know ULS, now you know. It can be a little glitchy sometimes. It's okay. We love it. It's so wonderful that we forgive it. Just refresh it. Give it some grace.
5.
There we go. And it'll fix itself. I want you to notice something, because we are looking at the different differentiation levels, right? This level has written language on the side. Emily sees 2 beach towels. Chris sees 3 beach towels. How many altogether, right? And it gives them the independence of typing in those numbers or writing it if you print it out, right? When you go to level 2, it still has that language on the side. Emily sees 2 beach towels. Chris sees 3 towels, right? When you get to level 1, a lot of their activities, you're going to see them subscribing to this idea of the economy of words, right? The idea is that when you're level 1, it adds a layer of challenge for you to have this word problem, to see this language on the page, right? And the goal is at level 1 for them to be able to look at this and make the association between 2 is on the top, 3 is on the bottom. What is it all together? Like, they are making those visual associations that are independent of the language. You can decide as a teacher to give them that language. I can see this and I know the problem, right? I could say, Miss Bo has 2 beach towels and you have 3 beach towels. We are going to the beach together. How many towels do we have all together? Like that sort of thing. You know, like I can narrate this for them and give them some verbal cues, but they're eliminating the busyness on the page, the things that are distracting to the eye, where a student on a level 1 might see a sentence and be overwhelmed by that sentence because they are not at a level where they're able to read that sentence. It is not giving them, you're not assessing their skill at that point. We want to know, can they solve this math problem with these visual supports, right? So that is why you see that change as the differentiated levels go from spot to spot. I will say this too, one more thing, then I'll stop. For my students who are on the cusp of 1 to 2, a lot of times you will see me show them this part. I might screen grab this and screen grab the other thing and mesh them together in a Google Doc on a slides page. You might see me blend these because I know that my student will benefit from having the word problem, but they need the support of having those numbers in place because they're not quite there yet. You know your student, you know what they need. And it's also trial and error, right? If you see your student is not able to solve the problem when you have all of these things in place, like these sentences in place, you might want to try taking them away and see, oh, well, it turns out that they really are closer to that level 1 in order for us to really assess their knowledge on the topic. Like we don't want other factors to get in, we don't want global factors to get in the way of figuring out if your student is grasping this concept. So we have to isolate that concept as much as possible. And it's going to give you multiple prompts, right? It's going to give you lots of probes, and you're going to have level 1, 2, and 3 for each of them. Ba-bam, ba-bam, ba-bam. And you have 16 pages of that, and that's a standard. So if you are working on an IEP goal and the IEP goal is aligned to this specific standard, to standard NC4, NBT4, I think that is actually NBT, that's addition word problems, which is why it has the words on it. And you know that this is something that they're working on. Okay, well, there you go. You have a probe to work with them on that standard. Same thing with this one. Addition word problems, that's 2 probes right there that you can work on with that standard with IEP goals. And then if you're reteaching, you taught a whole lesson on addition and Billy is not getting the concept of NC4, NBT4. These are some activities that you can do to reinforce that information and reteach these concepts and skills. All right, so that's activities. Love the activities. Sometimes I love the activities so much that they drive like entire lessons, but then you have your actual like lesson plan here. So this is all of it. I like to pull this up in a PDF. I don't usually do this in interactive mode because this would make my head explode. So everything that we just did, every activity that's in this entire lesson is going to be in this PDF, which is why it's 100 pages long. So for me personally, I don't know. I mean, there's a table of contents. I don't know who accesses it like that. If you access it like that, bless you, because I would not be able to do it. But just so you know, it is an option. You can access the entire thing like that. What I like to do is I like to pull up the PDF. So let me come back and show you the way I do it. There's a million ways to sandpaper this table. Let's see. So unit lessons. Okay. So remember how we picked a concept. So we picked addition over here, and then we opened up the PDF. Oh, there it is right there. This PDF is also going to be a bunch of pages, and it's all going to be addition activities. This way you can look over it. You can print out the probes so that they're on paper. You can look at them ahead of time. Obviously, you know, you're going to see all the different levels, and it's all in one document. And then what I like to do at this is if I'm looking over this document and I'm like, oh, I really want this number sense 33 activity. This is what I'm working on. I'm working on multi-digit edition. This is perfect for me. That way I can go into the library and I can just search usually you can search the number. Hold on, let's see. Number sense 33. So I'll put number sense. Number sense 33. There it is. Number sense 33. You just pull that up and now you can go into interactive mode and it will only have that activity so that you don't have a bazillion other activities with it. It's very cool in here. This is a cool place to be. I love this section of News to You and Unique Learning Systems. It is really phenomenal. You could teach only using this. You could do it. You really could. You could use just this and you can hit every standard and it will be dynamic. It will be engaging. This is an amazing tool. They talk about like the floors and the ceilings and all that stuff. If this is your floor, if this is your foundation, you have a very strong foundation. Using Unique Learning Systems and their courses and their lessons, that is a excellent foundation. Okay, so now we've looked into that a little bit. Play around in here and see what you can find. If you can't find something, so let's say you have a standard and you want to teach. I'll use an actual example. So and when you get into the high school suite, there is a standard that I could not find about slopes. So slopes and intercepts, like that sort of thing, solving for slope, the slope of a line. I could not find that when I was looking at their standards. So I emailed them and I said, hey, why don't you touch on this standard? And I'm still waiting for a response. This was just a couple days ago. And I am sure that they are going to email me back and either direct me to where they do touch on it and work on changing the format so that that standard is listed in their activities. They're going to resolve it. I've never had an issue with Unique Learning Systems that they have not resolved, honestly, before I've even reached out to them sometimes, because there's a million of us using this and we know when a standard's missing because all the high school teachers got to that slope intercept section of their standards and they're like, there's no ULS lesson for this. And I'm sure a bunch of people reach out to them. So they're pretty responsive and they do a good job with that. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's go to core materials. Core materials, I love the core materials. I don't really use this as much, but it's still super cool. So with the core materials, you are going to see a task library. And this is going to be up to you how you use it, if you use it, but it's really cool to have these things as an option. So essentially what this does is it takes tasks that you are likely to come in contact with in the educational environment, and it breaks it down for our students into something that is palatable, systematic, explicit. So let me show you an example. Let's say you guys do, so I like the circle time one. I think that one really kind of puts it into perspective. Where is that? I feel like it's in daily schedules. So you know that you're going to be working on daily schedules. It gives like a little explanation on what this is for, like why it's important for transition, and then like why it's important for classroom activities. And this is like the lesson plan. And it gives you that differentiated level. That's our favorite thing in ULS, how you can expect for students to engage and participate in this. And then it tells you the materials that you're going to have. And what you'll notice is that it has the tools that you need to work on the skill or the task of creating a schedule. So it has these daily schedules. It has little printouts for things that you can cut out and put on the schedules. It's going to have the big ones that you can probably put on your board. And look, it has a little spot where you can put your own time in, because we know this happens at different times of the day. It even has blank ones where you can add your own. So this is just going to be a PDF document with the resources, like the tools that you need to create this task, right? And it does that for all of these other tasks too. So daily schedules. If you do a monthly calendar, there's a weather section, there's a lunch section. Let me click on lunch and show it to you. Oh, that's what it is. I'm sorry, I was getting confused. So circle time. It'll have underneath it what these tasks are for. And you see where it says circle time? Like these are great things to do during like a morning meeting or a circle time type thing. And it'll say like, oh, snack time. Like it tells you when to use it over there. Activities, recreation, like that sort of thing. So like the weather report is a good thing to do during circle time. Again, it gives you the transition goals. It gives you how it's used in the classroom with activities and like the little lesson plan for it, the differentiated levels, things you need. And then it has all the materials for you to create this with your students. I love this because if you looked in our other video, you saw that I absolutely love the weather component offered in News to You. There is a weather section that's great for daily use or at least like weekly use in the classroom. I absolutely love it. It's an awesome activity. And these are the picture symbols that go along with it and things that you can use during circle time to support it. Yeah. So those are your core materials. And last, we're going to look at courses. So this is an interesting section of Unique Learning Systems. So it just depends on your style and how much you want them to do the work for you. For me personally, when I am creating a lesson, I like to use the Unique Learning Systems lessons to find all the pieces that I want. And I use those pieces to create my lesson, right? I like to be able to search by standards and like all that stuff. So like that is my style. In in science and social studies, I obviously lean more toward this and you're going to see why. So when we were searching for science and social studies activities in the section that we were in before in this, let me show you, in the lesson section, you notice that in the lesson section, I went to unit 4, that's where we were, and I clicked on science and there was one activity. And I clicked on social studies and there was one activity. That is because every unit does not touch on all of the science and social studies activities, but that does not mean that they are not in Unique Learning Systems. That means that it doesn't touch on them in every unit, which, I mean, if you think about it, makes sense. Like, you're not going to teach every science standard during the month of April. That's weird, right? Like it doesn't work for science and social studies. It does kind of work for ELA and math because these are areas. Like you might be doing number sense every single month, but the number sense is shifting from addition to subtraction to multiplication to division. You know, like it might be number identification when you first start. It might be identifying subitizing. You know, like these are all things that are under that parameter. Or geometry. You might be teaching geometry. You should be teaching geometry every single month, but you're teaching it a different way. Maybe it's two-dimensional shapes, and then it's three-dimensional shapes, and then it's maybe, I don't know, mapping. You understand graphing. Like these are things that you're going to be touching on the skills and building the skills for, and it's the same thing in ELA. So like math and ELA are kind of a spectrum of learning, right? And you have foundational pieces that you need to get to the next level, and then you have things that are independent that you don't necessarily need to be phonemically aware. You might be limited phonemically, which impacts your ability to read, basic words or even read a text, but that doesn't necessarily impact your ability to comprehend a text, right? It might impact your fluency when reading because you're unable to sound out the individual sounds in a word, but it's not necessarily impacting your written expression and your ability to complete a fill-in-the-blank activity. So like, it's so complex, right? So that's why lessons are great for reading and math because they're all encompassing and they hit as many standards as possible. Science. In this area, I really like to focus on science and social studies. You can do it with math and reading. If I click on math, it's going to have different courses and they're broken up by the different umbrellas for each of the standards. So like if you're working on matching and sorting, If you're working on identifying shapes, then you're going to find those courses here. So let's just open one to see it. So let's say you're doing matching and sorting and you're working on little and big. It has the PDF option, it has the interactive option. You can also view the activities if you want to do them individually. These are all just different ways to access this material, right? Like they want to give you a bunch of different ways to access it so that you can choose. All right, so when you pull up a course, it's going to be organized into the pre-assessment. So it's going to give you a little assessment to see where you're at. There's going to be vocabulary games and review. There is going to be like a study on tools and manipulatives. I love their show and tell activities. These are super fun. Take a look at those. And so it's going to have all of these pieces that you can use to teach the subject. It's like a full course. The course is on big and little, right? And there's going to be interactive pieces. Like I said, this is going to be a bunch of pages. I don't like to access it like this. I like to find what I need in the PDF or find what I need on this page. And then I like to open that as an individual assignment or as an individual interact. So these are really cool, right? Here's what you need for science and social studies. You are going to make your pacing guide for the year, right? And that pacing guide is going to make sure that you have a lot of time on the subjects that we know are going to be hit on that Extend 1 testing. Fact of life, sorry. It just is what it is. So if you see the data from last year and it says 45 questions were on chemical and physical change, you know, not only are you going to make sure that you have a full month to cover chemical and physical change, you're going to make sure you have time to cover it again during your review at the end of the year. It's intentional. So you know that you're going to want to do that. And to do that and to decide how you want to order your science and your pacing guide, you're teaching a whole grade band of 3rd through 5th graders in this scenario, but you know that 5th grade is the tested year. You're gonna touch on all the subjects. You're not gonna leave anything out, but you know that 5th grade is being tested, and that is going to influence your decision making, right? So let's just use chemical and physical change as an example. Lots of pages. This section you're gonna see lots of materials for science and social studies. So chemical and physical change. Let's see. What do we got? Oh yeah. So I typed in chemical and physical change. Oh, and let's see, chemical, physical changes, making fudge. Looks like all of these are kind of related. So, now you can also type in the standard here. And this is kind of like the library. Remember I was saying like, ooh, it's a little finicky. And you gotta type in just the right thing. So I'm just like exploring right now. Let me look at their Earth spins, Earth fossils, minerals, Mexico, moon phase, recycling, changes in season. Nope. We keep going. Water. I couldn't have picked one that was easy, right? Photosynthesis. Look at all these different subjects, right? Oh, good. Earth science, life science. They're broken up by that. I bet it's on the last page. I bet it is all the way back here. Physical science. Here we go. There's gravity, energy, elements, how things move, force and motion. Oh, there we go. Physical and chemical changes. All right. So this is going to be the course. Physical and chemical changes. Look at this. I'm also probably going to teach about matter because I usually teach about matter before I teach about physical and chemical change. But let's come to this one because this is the one that I decided to use as my example for some reason, even though there was a million different ones I could have used. This is the one I wanted. So let's come here to chemical and physical change, and I'm going to view the activities. And then these are going to be some activities that is giving me to do for chemical and physical change. So I know if I'm making a lesson about chemical and physical change, I'm probably going to include this text, right? This is going to be a part of the lesson. I'm probably going to do this. I don't even know what this is. Let's see. probably questions for the text. Let's see. Everything's going to have a lesson plan page. Always know that you are going to have your lesson plan page and your, I love these. Okay. We didn't talk about this yet. So when you have an activity that goes with a read aloud, there is actually going to be a description of what they would do with an activity. This is awesome. So this is great if you're not great about like coming up with discussion ideas on the fly. This is an awesome way to have it kind of do it for you and work you through the process. And you don't have to do it exactly as they say it, but it might inspire you with different things you want to do. So it will always give you a before reading, a during reading, and an after reading. And they see it as a all-encompassing, like a whole lesson. And it's giving you some ideas to use while you're doing it. So it's going to give you some key things that you want to do. Before the reading, you might want to activate their prior knowledge, discuss changes that happen to matter, because you wouldn't be teaching this without the foundation of teaching about matter, right? You're going to show them the story. You're going to preview the story. Maybe you're going to do a picture walk and point out the illustrations and point out the different things in the story. So it's telling you to go through a picture walk. And then it gives you something that you can say, tell the students, as we read today, it's your job to remember one way that matter can change. So giving them a focus goal. And then it also gives you could use this as a repeated storyline. I will remember one way that matter can change. I will remember one way that matter can change. You can record that on the switch, have that be somebody's job to help everyone remind them what their goal is, right? What their objective is. And then it tells you some things to do that would be good during the reading itself. So you're reading it aloud, you're showing fluency and expression, you're modeling the behavior, right, that you want to see in them. You're calling attention to different words that are important in the text. This gives examples: solid, gas, liquid, melt, freeze, hot, cold. You are interacting with text. So you're commenting on people, settings, and events. Comment on how you relate to the illustrations and think about how matter can change and call upon your prior knowledge. Model that behavior. This, for some of us, seems like second nature. But for a lot of people, whether they're brand new or have been teaching for a long time, it's not. So to see these things written out can really inspire you to make sure that you are doing these things while you're reading, right? And then it gives you some things to do after the reading, something to revisit your learning goal, have somebody tell you the learning goal, have them all tell you the learning goal, use that switch, you know what to do, differentiate it, right? And then it gives you the things to do based on the level. So we love those differentiated levels. If you're in a level 1, all your kids are level 1 or level 2. In that small group, have students answer a question or complete a sentence frame from the level 2 practice by making a selection from a field of 2 to 3 errorless choices in order to identify one way that matter can change. I love that because it tells you exactly how you can call back to what you just learned with the level 1 students. But then it also gives you an idea of what to do, an activity for level 2 and for level 3. This is great. This is so helpful. If you have a story, I encourage you to check to see if there is an activity page like this that goes along with your story so that you can have those ideas sitting in your mind. You might forget a vocabulary word. That's fine. But you're starting off knowing like, hey, while I'm reading, I'm going to touch on vocabulary. That's something that I'm definitely going to do. And you might remember to point out solid, liquid, and gas. It's awesome. It's awesome. You might not have remembered to do that if you didn't read this ahead of time. So use this and let this grow you. Let it guide you when you're doing your read alouds. So those are very cool. All right. And we are going to go into the teacher reference material just so we can look at these real quick. This is something that I really encourage you to look at on your own because there's so much content in here, right? They have instructional tools, guides, alignment tools. You see just like off the bat, you see the grading cards, you see the letter to the parents, you see scientific inquiry processes. I used to use this to make my lessons, tracing letters. These are just things that they think that you might want to use. Everything's in here. You can really do everything with ULS. It is Fabulous. So that's your teacher tools, your reference materials, and then your topics. This is important. This is ULS's pacing guide. I don't know if they always had this, but I don't remember this from longer than like 2 years ago. And this was great when this started coming out. Maybe I just didn't know where it was, but now I do. And I look at this every year. It lets you know what's coming up, what to expect. 2023, 2024, it's going to give you their pacing guide. And here's what I recommend doing, if you can, if you find yourself so able. It's going to tell you the order that they are teaching science and social studies. And you're going to notice that, let's say I click on, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look at elementary, right? You're going to notice that they alternate between science and social studies based on the month. So they might have your ELA, your math, and then they're focusing on a science standard. The next month, it's ELA, math, and they're focusing on a social study standard. They go back and forth. That doesn't mean that there isn't always a science activity. There is. There's always going to be a science activity. If it's not a science month, you're going to notice that that science activity is probably reteaching a concept that you learned the previous month, and same thing to do with social studies. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at their pacing guide. And you could do your best to try and align your pacing guide with their pacing guide, and that way it will follow the theme. So if you are in elementary school and you are on Unit 2, I'm sorry, this is K-12 topics. So if you're in elementary school and you are on Unit 21, you're going to see that what they're focusing on Unit 21 is We Work Together Government, a social studies topic. And if you go into that area in the courses, you are going to see what standards specifically that talks about. So social studies. And then Unit 22 is science. And it looks like they did science again for Unit 23. And then they go to social studies. So they're not focusing on science and social studies usually in the same month. So you'll see their pacing guide for that. And here we are back at our teacher dashboard. I hope that you found this video helpful. This was definitely one of the longer videos, a lot more detailed. You might see that this video is actually broken up into multiple videos, but I encourage you to take a look back at some of our other videos that talk about the different components of unique learning systems. And thank you so much for watching.